Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings. Cheers, cup of tea. I've been getting quite a lot of questions recently. Liam Sullivan gave one where he said he didn't know which video to comment on, so he chose the newest one. He's trying to write a mystery novel and he was wondering whether he should research the topic or plot the story first. What do I think? Well, not easy. Well, actually, it is easy. Personally, you can't write a plot unless you've got a really good grounding in the topic that you're thinking of. Usually, my view is that you need to have the characters first. You need to have a rough idea about whether you're going to be writing a revenge-type story, an adventure-type story, whether you're going to write something in flashbacks and so on. But the main thing for me is to get the characters right. And once you've got the characters firmly fleshed out with their motivations and how they're going to react, hopefully, then the plot can start to run. If you're writing something, though, which it sounds like Liam is, where he's got a specific topic that he wants to look at, well, you've got to have a firm grounding in that before you can really get started. For example, if I was going to write a book about the Knights Templar, my Templar series, there's no way I'd have been able to write them without already having immersed myself fully in the Templars' history and in the rules of the Templar. What sort of people did they have? What sort of age were they? Where did they fight? How were they trained? All of that information was absolute basic stuff. It wasn't until I had that I could start thinking about the characters and how they're going to interact. In the same way, if you're writing a police procedural, you need to have a basic idea about how the police operate. That's not necessarily true in the past, because Colin Dexter never understood how they operated, and if you look at Morse, there's no way he'd have been in the police force. He'd have been kicked out many years before for irresponsible work. But those were the heydays of writing crime, really. That was the 70s and 80s when he was writing most of his books. And it was a lot easier in those days trying to get in because there weren't quite so many authors. Now, everybody tries to write a book, and it's a lot more difficult to get your book noticed as a result. So I would say, Liam, main thing for you to do is to make sure you've got a really firm understanding of the topic that you're looking at, and then you can start worrying about how the plot's going to go, what sort of characters to use. My own process would be understand your topic, then get your characters and firm them up, and then the characters hopefully are going to drive your plot. It's not a case of having a plot and then trying to get characters to react in the way that you want them to, because that just makes unbelievable stories. Stephen King, J.R.R. Tolkien, and me all tend to write on the basis of good characters, and then the characters' flaws and strengths can drive the plot itself. I have been asked as well by a delightful fellow, Keith Silvas. He wanted to know what the process was of getting a book into print. Basically, it's a slog. Writing a book is easy. That takes a lot of effort, and the first book will take months to do, but it's actually not a very difficult process. You're just making things up all the time. The difficulty then comes that when you've written it, obviously you have to interest an agent, or make sure that your existing agent is happy. The agent will have to read through, and they'll normally have comments that they want to make. When the agent's finished with it, hopefully it'll go on to the editor, and the editor will have some comments that she wants to add. Either little tweaks to the story, change the ending slightly, or whatever it may be. One of my editors didn't like me kicking a cat. Apparently it's perfectly alright for one of my characters to kick a dog, but not to kick a cat. He still kicked the dog. Anyway, once the editor's had a go at it, and you've done all the corrections that she wants, and it almost invariably is a she, then it'll go on to a copy editor. And the copy editor's job is to make sure that every aspect of the story ties up, so they'll make sure that the character with black hair at the beginning of the book still has black hair at the end of it. She'll make sure that the bloke who's a hypochondriac at the beginning of the book still is at the end. It's that sort of consistency, but also looking through for any grammatical errors there could be. It's astonishing how easy it is to miss errors. I tend to, here's half of my next book, I tend to print out all my books at every drafting stage, because you can see the errors on a sheet of paper much more easily than you can on a backlit screen. A university in the States did some analysis some years ago, and they found that you found considerably more errors on a sheet of paper than you ever did on a screen. Don't ask me why, it's just something to do with the way that the light hits your eye or something. But certainly you do find many, many more errors on a sheet of paper. So the copy editor goes through grammatical context and everything else. In the good old days, the copy editor's other job was to make sure that it was set up ready for the typesetter, so they have all the strange little commands everywhere for the typesetter. But that stage seems to have been bypassed now that everything goes straight from effectively Word, or in my case Nisus Writer Pro, straight into the typesetters. It saves an awful lot of all the compositing time, but there still has to be a proofing stage. So once it's come from the copy editor back to the author's made any corrections, then it goes back to the publishers, and the proofer takes control. And the proofer is someone who goes through and makes sure that all the line breaks are in the right position. Every first line of every paragraph is tabbed in. There's consistent line spacing, character sets, and everything else. And also they'll try to pick any holes in the story if they possibly can, which the author then gets hold of, and at last the author sends it back. And this could be, in some cases, over a year. Some publishers are fairly slow. Other publishers, like Seven House with the Jack Blackjack series, are quite quick, and they take 4 or 5 months to go through all the stages, which is nice, except they don't always let me know when the edits are coming back. Anyway, so at the end of all of that, it can go to print, and someone at some stage presses a separate divert button and sends bits of it off to ebook, and you have your book ready to go out and get sold. And that's nice, because when the book gets sold, the author starts to get paid for every new copy of the book. Don't forget, second-hand copies of the book, the author doesn't get paid a penny. So if you're a keen reader, contacting your author and saying, I really enjoyed all of your books, I got all of them from Oxfam or somewhere similar, isn't the way to make a friend of the author. It's far better to say, I bought them all brand new from Waterstones. Bear that in mind. Anyway, so Liam and whoever the other person was, whose name escapes me right now, let me just have a look through my nicely tabbed set of notes here. Yes, Keith Silvers. Liam and Keith Silvers, hope that answers both of your questions. If you've got any questions, please let me know. There's a nice little comments box down the bottom there. Over there, apparently, is my face, and if you hit it with your cursor, then apparently you'll be taken straight through to the previous video, whereas over there, if you hit that, you can subscribe to me without having to go all the way down to the bottom. But do go to the bottom, because then you can say you like it, and you can comment on it, and you can share it, as well as subscribing down the bottom. It's good down there. Thanks a lot. Take care. I'm going back to my tea now.